I'd like to call to order the May 13, 2014 meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, I'd ask you to join me in an invocation. God, we're grateful to see today. Each day is a gift of opportunity and potential to improve our community and improve ourselves. Each one of us is a miracle. Each one of us is unique, meaningful, and matters. God, I'd ask that you put your arms of comfort around the family of Keith Crisco over his untimely passing. Put the blanket of reason in the Ukraine region as they have problems with Russia and they have instability in that region. Put compassion and love into the heart of the kidnappers of the Nigerian school girls and the criminals that have abducted them. Give wisdom to the Commission and all the other elected officials who are setting priorities, budgets, and making choices that are critical to the people who we represent and who elected us. God, thank you for everything we are given by your grace. Amen. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the Board of Commissioners, it's the duty of every member to avoid both potential and actual conflicts of interest. Does any board member know of any potential or actual conflict of interest with any matter that might come before the board tonight? If not, we'll proceed to public comment. The time limit for addressing the Commission is 3 minutes. If your time expires, you can leave any question along with your name, address, phone number, or email with the county manager. Commissioners are not expected to comment on matters during public comment. It's your time to talk to us. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of the Commission or to pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment should address the entire Commission. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and be respectful of everyone in the room. Any person who willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts the session will be asked to leave the meeting. And the Commission deserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the Commission. We'll have public comment. Any members of the public want to be heard tonight? Yes, sir, on the third row. Anybody else? Ms. Baldwin, you'll be second, and then gentleman in the back, you'll be third. If you give your name and address, and we'll hear from you. Thank you.
I feel like I've worn out my welcome here, appearing so much. I'm Charles Weichel. I live on Old Farm School Road. I wish to call the Commission's attention to just one thing about concerning the development of the Coggins property. All of you know the actions of the Board of Adjustment. They have approved the developer's design. Our attorney at the Board of Adjustments very ably pointed out to the Board of Adjustments several things in the application, but two in particular I wish to address to this Commission: restaurant and business offices. This is an R2, rural residential. I'm a little bit confused how they fit into a rural residential area. The action actually by the Board of Adjustment renders rural residential meaningless. It has no meaning. If you can put restaurants there, you can put restaurants anywhere where it's R2. If you put business offices there, you can put business offices anywhere, because you do not treat people differently. And if this is now the new era of rural residential. I wish we had been R1, but that's not the case. I call on this governing body to look at this. After all, you folks were expecting the developer to come to you and ask for public service. That would have been appropriate to ask for that designation. R2 is not public service. It has no connection. And if we are to then expand R2 to look like public service, I suggest you merge the two zoning entities together. I ask the board to examine this very carefully. I've said several times, and you well know, you're going to get more and more and more development in this area. And we have been blessed with what we have. I urge you to take very, very special care, as I'm sure you intend to do, to make sure this process and these actions are appropriate to what we have before us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weichel. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Baldwin. And I'd like to recognize both Lisa Baldwin with the Reynolds members of the school board from Reynolds District, and Pat Bryan, also a member of the school board from the Irwin District. Thank you both for being here. Ms. Baldwin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Lisa Baldwin, and I'm here today as a concerned citizen, taxpayer, parent, and elected school board member. My children have been educated in Buncombe County schools for the past 15 years, and over those years we have sold cookie dough, fall festival tickets, pasta, chocolate bars, baked goods, frozen pizzas, flower bulbs, personalized coffee mugs, you name it, we've sold it, all in the name of raising money for our local classrooms. You could say that I'm here to fundraise today to call to your attention the county's role in funding education for Buncombe children. According to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, Buncombe County ranks 7th in the state in population. We rank 7th out of 100 counties for the number of people living here. Buncombe County Schools is the 11th largest school district in North Carolina. But Buncombe County ranks 34th in county funding. That is 34th in county per pupil expenditures. Let me repeat, we are the 7th largest county, 11th largest school district, but we rank 34th in county funding of our schools. I look forward to seeing these statistics change. I look forward to seeing education made the #1 priority. Not #2, but #1 in Buncombe. The need to fundraise has reached epic and embarrassing proportions as our classrooms are starved of instructional supplies and textbooks. You have the power to fully fund the classrooms and give our teachers a pay raise, but it is all a matter of priorities. I've heard you say you're doing all you can with what you have, but are you really? Buncombe County ranks the 7th largest in the state, the 11th largest school district, and 34th in county per pupil expenditures. Actions speak louder than words. Examine how you are spending our tax dollars and make the funding of teaching and learning the #1 priority in Buncombe. Thank you.
Yes, sir, in the back. Any other public comment tonight? Okay, you'll be next after this gentleman. Thank you. Second row.
Good evening, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity for me to be able to speak tonight. My name is Fane Ball. I'm here to support the domestic violence review team, fatality review team. It's a cause I care very much about. We need something like this in our area and in other areas as well. Unfortunately, sometimes when people talk about domestic violence, there is a bias. Actually, 40% of all domestic violence victims are men. I know because I was one of them. There are no services for male victims of domestic violence. There are no shelters, no resources, no support groups, no legal counsel. And without addressing the fact that as many as a third of the domestic violence victim population could be ignored. That's something that needs to be considered when this team is put together. I hope the board and others will consider including male and female survivors of domestic violence so we can address this and so that others can come forward. Thank you for your time and have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. And that is on our agenda, and I think you'll get some very pleasing news tonight from Commissioner Jones. And I think I saw Judge Knight here also. Next up, you, sir. And anybody else want to have public comment tonight? Mr. Rice will be after that. Now, just so you'll know, we are going to do public hearings on the Round-A-Bout, Borg Warner, Lifeway Christian, and airport industry. So there will be opportunity if people have comments on those when we take those up. You're welcome to do it now, but
my comment was about Lifeway.
I'm sorry, I should have said that before.
That's all right.
If you don't mind, it might be right when we're deliberating. It might be a better time.
I'm happy to.
But you're welcome to do both. Actually, you're a citizen. You can talk on anything. But okay, Mr. Rice, thank you, sir. My bad for not doing that at the beginning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to see you again. Somebody said they wore out their welcome. I ain't been here but 4 times. You know, I've been here so many times, you know, you ought to feed me this time, you know.
We fed you before.
I feel deprived. Domestic violence. It's a great program that I've heard this evening. I applaud what they're doing. One thing that I don't see, out of the 6 points, they didn't make the point of the money. If you don't have money, you can't do a plan. And the sustainability of this plan, there's nothing here that shows me it's going to be sustainable when the politicians and elected officials are gone to be sustainable in the future. So I think those are 2 key pieces that need to be in if you're planning. Planning needs to have money, and planning needs to have a 5 to 10 year plan out there in front. And I didn't hear that either. So when the politicians are gone, the elected officials are gone, I guess they're the same wad, you know. We need something that sustains the people in this program. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. The other issue is the Inca District. I seen on the consent agenda a piece of property that nobody is bringing up, even our designated person from the Inca District. Neither one of them brought it up today. When property is being bought for a school purpose and a county function as well, under the CRA board has not even heard about this project that Yuns are fixing to buy the property on. And I think it is concerning to me that the school board has not even mentioned it as well about this extra piece of property. It's kind of a disguise instead of being transparent with the people in the community. This ball field that you're talking about and the parking that you're talking about on this piece of property, why wasn't it mentioned when the school board brought up this piece of property for a school? Nobody did that. The CRA meetings, I've been to every one of them. No one has mentioned this. Now it's coming under the consent agenda, no transparency whatsoever. That's $195,000 for that piece of property. That's not the only piece of property out there that Buncombe County's got or looking at. And in the future, we're going to see even more, but nobody's talking about it. We need to have some transparency on this board and not in the back room. Backroom politics should be gone a long time ago. We need transparency. Thank you.
Any other public comment tonight? If not, we'll proceed to, is there a motion to follow the agenda as we've published it? So moved. Motion by Vice Chair Frost. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner King. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of following the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Good news. Announcement of our comprehensive plan to address domestic violence. Commissioner Jones.
Well, Chairman Gant, thank you for this opportunity. And as most of you know on this table with me, that there's been a broad group of community players discussing the plague of domestic violence in our community for close to a year now. And there has been outstanding leadership from our Buncombe County Health and Human Services team, from the Sheriff's Department, from the District Attorney's Office, as well as so many victim services providers. And so much work, so much research has happened, lots of discussions, even some field trips to some other communities to kind of learn about best practices. And it was very exciting earlier today to be able to unveil and announce to the community that we are, as Buncombe County, are presenting a comprehensive plan to address domestic violence in our community. We have a short video that I'm going to tee up right now, and then we'll explain it a little bit more in depth afterwards. Or I could sing.
Over the past year, a lot of stakeholders in Buncombe County, to include the Sheriff's Office, Asheville Police Department, the District Attorney's Office, Mission Hospital, Health and Human Services, just a cadre of folks, to include Commissioner Holly Jones, have been working together to try to come up with a better best practice for how we deal with cases of domestic violence. What 2013 really showed us here in Buncombe County was that problem is increasingly getting worse. In 2013, we had 5 intimate partner domestic violence homicides. So with the conversation that had been going on, which was really highlighted by those tragedies in 2013, a group to include retired Judge Rebecca Knight came together to draw empirical information and really look around the state as well as the country to look at best practice models that were out there in place and working to reduce those intimate partner domestic violence homicides.
The Buncombe County Comprehensive Domestic Violence Plan is not focusing on just any one area. It has 5 areas of approach, 5 prongs. One is a high-risk domestic violence team. 2 is the use of an evidence-based lethality assessment so we can identify victims who are in the most danger. 3 is a focused deterrence program where we can get offenders, get their attention, and let them know that our community doesn't tolerate domestic violence. 4 is an electronic monitoring program to alert victims and law enforcement when an offender has violated the conditions of his inclusion or exclusion zones. The 5th prong is a cross-system dialogue to make sure that we're communicating as a community and as professionals to expedite conveying information where it needs to go as soon as possible.
Public safety has to be our #1 priority. As I've looked and learned more and more about the epidemic of domestic violence and working with the YWCA USA, who has services across the country providing shelter and references for women fleeing domestic violence, I started looking for the best practices in other communities. And I came across a model that had some powerful impacts in Massachusetts. And so very quickly, I passed along this research and this model to staff at Buncombe County, and no surprise to me, but Mandy Stone and Rich Munger jumped on it immediately. They saw the possibility for returning those powerful results that had happened in other communities to our community, and as they say, then things really got rolling.
What I'm excited about in this initiative is the dual focus. There are components of it that are about the containment of the offender, ensuring that the victim's safe, ensuring that the community's safe from that individual, and then there are also components of it that focus on the victim's safety and how we provide the resources to support that victim in moving to a safe and sustainable independent living arrangement for themselves and often their children.
We're incredibly excited that the new domestic violence initiative is taking place. It represents an interweaving of nonprofit and government systems to a degree that hasn't happened before here in Buncombe County. Helpmate will be one of the agencies that does lethality assessments with victims to try to determine what their risk is of murder or attempted murder from their partner. We'll also participate in the cross-system dialogues to try to make sure that we as a system are working as effectively as possible so that no matter where that victim first encounters the helping system, they get the same high-quality level of response anywhere that they may enter.
A lot of times in domestic violence, different agencies have different information and it's not always been shared in the past because of issues of confidentiality, because of issues of certain agencies are not located in and around the court system, so we don't always see each other. But now with this new collaboration, what we're going to do is make sure that we share information, that we meet on a regular basis to talk about these cases that have been identified as special cases that need the extra attention. And I believe that will allow us to better serve the victims in these cases, better serve the community by making it a safer community, and better able to tailor the punishment so that it will fit exactly the needs of each criminal defendant.
Ultimately, the goal for this program is for women to feel safe in their communities and have peace of mind. In the long run, we also hope to look at preventing violence from the very beginning, and this will start with our children. But I'm very excited about the start that we have and that we're about to embark on.
I think the staff did a great job in preparing that video, and that will be available in the community too, because we want to educate the broader community on an ongoing basis about this and our approach. It's an honor to welcome to the Chambers retired Judge Rebecca Knight, who has really been quite an advocate for this initiative and put so much of her brains and her heart into this. And would like to ask her if she would give us some final kind of summary, and then also be willing to see if there's any questions up here and help me answer them, or maybe just answer them.
Commission, thank you very much for allowing us to be here tonight. This has been a long process. This work has been going on well from last summer forward. And it's been an amazing partnership of all the stakeholders and the leaders around domestic violence. It's very unusual to see that happen, where everybody comes together. Mandy Stone has had us meeting weekly and kept us on task on addressing all of these issues, and Holly's leadership has been remarkable. The Domestic Violence Initiative, you've seen the summary of the 6 components. There's a few I would like to give you a little more information about and why we sought out these programs for Buncombe County. The High-Risk Domestic Violence Team is the program that Holly found and brought to our attention. And it has remarkable success in Massachusetts. In that state, some counties have it and some counties don't. Over a 6-year period, the counties that had a high-risk domestic violence team had no domestic violence fatalities at all. In the same period of time, the counties that did not have the high-risk domestic violence team had 249 homicides. It's an amazing difference that high-risk team made. Now, a high-risk team is focused entirely on high lethality cases. And what we found was there's an international expert in lethality assessment, and that's Dr. Jacqueline Campbell from Johns Hopkins University. She spent 30 years studying. She's come up with some great diagnostic tools, some for the professionals in the field and the court system, and some for first responders and law enforcement. We're going to use both of those tools. Part of our plan on August the 5th, we're bringing Dr. Campbell to Asheville to train our community on domestic violence lethality assessments. This is important because her research shows that within a year of a homicide, most victims or perpetrators have contact with either the medical profession, the treatment facilities, or the court system. And so that's our clue. If we get those folks in any of those portals of entry into the domestic violence services, we can assess them, determine which ones are at high risk of being murdered, and actually take steps to intervene and stop that murder. And that's why it's worked in Massachusetts. It's absolutely stopped it in the counties they have it. So that's remarkable research. Another program out of High Point, North Carolina is focused deterrence for domestic violence offenders. They've had very similar results. They issued 940 warnings last year to offenders to say, you're committing domestic violence in our community, it's not acceptable, we will not tolerate it, you're under our scrutiny, we're going to watch you, we're going to follow you. They had a 7% recidivism rate. It stopped their behavior just by being told to no. And that's part of the Enough campaign, to say as a community, we've had enough domestic violence and we're going to put an end to it. So all of these pieces, the cross-system dialogue, the lethality training, the high-risk team, the focused deterrence, the electronic monitoring, and this is a piece that's very interesting to folks. Technology is so good now that we can give a victim a telephone that will alert her if her offender comes within a restricted zone, for example, a mile around her home, or where she works, or where she goes to school, or her children go to school, and she can be alerted. But if she carries that with her when she goes to the mall, she will know if that offender pulls in the parking lot. That gives her opportunity to execute her safety plan. Law enforcement is notified. They know within 1 foot where the offender is and where the victim is. And so they just go in the middle and they stop that violence from happening. These programs are very successful around the country and in North Carolina, and we're committed to bringing them here. It is really a reshift of the work we're doing. All of these people are already in place. We're already working as hard as we can around domestic violence. I think it's fair to say we have new ways of working in the future. We'll work smarter, we'll work faster, and we'll be more efficient, and we'll have better results. And that's what this county deserves, and that's what our citizens deserve. Whether you're a man or a woman, if you're a victim of domestic violence, you should have hope that we're going to put an end to this. We've had enough. Be glad to answer any questions or...
Judge, I just want to thank you and Commissioner Jones for, and all the team that y'all, the engine's really pushing it. We really thank you. It's a disgrace that we still have to talk about this kind of treatment of other human beings, but we do. And whether we, the numbers, what were the numbers? One in the incidents is just terrible.
Well, in Buncombe County last year, more than 7,000 911 calls around domestic violence, and more than 400 Child Protective Services investigation around domestic violence in our community.
Well, I want to thank both of you. Any other comments or questions?
If you can, in the press conference, I think it was very profound when you said that when law enforcement is called out to a call, that they will make that call to helpmate. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, ma'am. All the research shows that the hardest call for a victim to make is the first call to help. It's just difficult to admit you're in that situation. It's difficult to figure out that you can get out of it. So this is a practice out of Maryland. 100 counties in Maryland have implemented it. It's been highly successful. The officer has a telephone, and when he's to the scene, he's got the offender saying whatever the offender's saying. He's got the victim saying what the victim's saying. In front of the offender, he dials the number, which will be on speed dial to helpmate, hands the phone to the victim and say, this is an agency that wants to give you some guidance, some support, and some help. Go over there by yourself and talk to him. That offender now knows that she didn't call. So that protects her. And it gets her past that barrier of the fear of making the first call for help. The next part of the strategy will be the following day there will be another safety check by law enforcement, and helpmate will follow up. And one of the best factors that can reduce a woman's risk of being murdered is to get services. And so what Maryland has found is their number of their victims who are now accessing services is around 90%, and their fatality rates are dropping. So thank you for pointing that out. That's good information for victims to know.
I've got just a quick comment. I enjoyed sitting through the presentation earlier, and also appreciate everybody's hard work on this. It's certainly admirable. But the thing that struck me was the children. You know, the 400 children, and when you look at the map, they're everywhere. You can't say, well, you know, they're going to be in the city or they're going to be here. No, they're everywhere. And when we can reach out to the children, that's my filter. I try to pour everything through that. And so I applaud the effort of everything. But the children, it's everywhere in the county. It's not just one little spot or isolated. It's everywhere. So if we can reduce that number by several hundred, what a blessing. Thank you.
It would be amazing. And you have to remember, most offenders were raised in domestic violence. They started out as victims. That's all they know. That's how they respond. Not everyone, certainly, but obviously protecting our children is going to protect their futures and keep them from getting into this cycle of violence.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank Sheriff Van Duncan, who was at the press conference, has been such a partner in this from the very beginning, and really embraced this from the get-go. And it is definitely a journey that we're on, and it will be integrated into the long-term approach of the county, and so those long-term concerns are valid, and they will be absolutely addressed. I think it'll also be a program that will serve females as well as males. So there's just a lot of equity in this for men and women, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time. The last thing I wanted to say, in terms of making that last connection, the fact that Buncombe County is bringing all these best practices together, that is part of what is unique to individually. The components have been utilized in other communities. What is unique and powerful and exciting is the synergy that will come with all of them together, and that is what's really where we will be a leader in the state, and probably in the country down the road. And also, in terms of being a long-term journey, I do believe this will begin to change some of the culture around violence that does exist in families. And as we say enough, slowly that will change in our community. So I think that's another blessing to this approach. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful work. Let's give him a hand. This is a lot of work. This is something that does not happen overnight, so thank all of you. Next we have Foster Parent Month. If Angie can come up, and then we'll have Commissioner Belcher give the presentation. We'd also ask that the foster families come up, and I think Angie will introduce them.
Okay, so I asked to do this proclamation for a couple of reasons. Ms. Stone knows from a previous meeting that my daughter and son-in-law have had the privilege of fostering children in Buncombe County. As a very protective father, when I first heard that they had the heart to do that, there was concern that I had. But when they were able to be connected with the children, it was a boy and a girl, and they brought them into their lives. Then they brought them into our lives, and they became part of our extended family, referring to me as Papaw, even to that extent. That's the difference that can be made they were with them several months. But I believe in a few hours you can an adult can make a difference with a child in a few hours. Certainly in a few months you're going to create a lifetime memory that they will never, ever shake. And so for that I commend all of you. And the way they still keep in contact. And there's the connections that are made that the foster parent allows reconnecting the parents with the child. They help heal that relationship. So for that reason, I'm excited about making these presentations tonight. County of Buncombe Proclamation of May 2014, Foster Care Month. Whereas the family serving as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support is the very foundation of our community. And whereas in Buncombe County the lives of hundreds of children and families are disrupted every year by crisis or conflicts in their homes. And whereas in Buncombe County there are over 300 children and youth in foster care, care that provides a safe, secure, and stable home along with the compassion and nurture of a foster family. And whereas foster families in Buncombe County open their homes and hearts to children whose families are in crisis, play a vital role helping children and families heal and reconnect and launch children into successful adulthood. And whereas foster families are an invaluable resource and perform an extraordinary service by working in partnership with agencies to nurture children and provide an opportunity for healthy growth and development. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for the County of Buncombe as follows, that the month of May 2014 be proclaimed Foster Care Month in Buncombe County, that all citizens be urged to recognize the important role foster parents play in the life of our community and be urged to volunteer their talents and energies on behalf of children in foster care. That this proclamation be effective upon its adoption, adopted this the 13th day of May 2014, Board of Commissioners for County of Buncombe, signed by David Gant, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So thank you all. I just want to, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Angie Garner, and I'm the foster care supervisor at Buncombe County. So I have the privilege of supervising our licensing social workers who work with our foster families. And right now we have over 90 foster families, and I wish that they could all be here today, but I do want to take a minute just to talk about our foster families in general and what amazing work that they do for us. And honestly, foster families are the framework for child services. Without them, we would really have a problem moving forward daily with all the children that we have in care. And I do like to say that our foster families not only work with children in crisis, but families in crisis. And what a lot of folks don't know is that these families, these foster families, work with the biological families in what we call shared parenting. And so we have children that do return home to their biological families, and we really have to owe that to our foster families and their hard work and dedication and their selflessness in working with these biological families and giving up these children who they have brought into their home and love them as their own. So they're just amazing, amazing people. So we're just going to recognize 3 families today that are with Buncombe County Department of Health and Human Services. So the first family that I would like to come up would be John and Rebecca Hayes. And this recognition is for being the longest tenured foster family that we have. So on behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board expresses its sincere appreciation for you as the longest tenured foster parents in Buncombe County. We thank you for your outstanding commitment to children and families. Your efforts have changed the lives of so many in our community. You are a true example of our motto, people to match our mountains. And I do want to say something just a little about each family, that they have a young youth, a foster child in their home, and is so successful, and she's actually going off to Western Carolina in the fall, and she is going to remain with the Hayes. So congratulations. So our second recognition is Susan Aller. Can you come up, Susan, and bring your children? So we are recognizing Susan Aller today for adopting the most children through Buncombe County Department of Health and Human Services. And Susan has adopted 5 children through us, as you can see all right here. So Susan, on behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board expresses its sincere appreciation to you for having contributed to the most family permanence in Buncombe County. We thank you for your outstanding commitment to children and families. Your efforts have made our community a better place. You are a true example of our motto, people to match our mountains.
Thank you so much.
And our third recognition is Sarita Holloway. Sarita, if you'll come up. So Sarita gets our award today for our recognition for having served the most children in her home. So on behalf of the citizens of Buncombe County, this board expresses its sincere appreciation to you for having served the most foster children in Buncombe County. We thank you for your outstanding commitment to children and families. Your efforts have made our community a better place, and you are a true example of our motto, people to match our mountains. And Sarita has also adopted a teenager, so I want to let everyone know that. So thank you very much. Just one more recognition. Tamala Shook. This is our program administrator over foster care for Department of Health and Human Services. So thank you, Tammy. She's a wonderful supervisor, and she runs our program and does an excellent job.
I just wanted to say thank you to Angie Garner for her leadership and development of the licensing program within our agency, and I want to say my personal thank you to all of the foster parents.
Thank you, lady. Is Mr. Williams here? Okay. Oh, we do? Okay. Y'all come on up. David, Commissioner King is going to do the presentation. Motorcycle Awareness Month. If y'all come on up.
Okay, I have the honor this evening of doing the proclamation for Motorcycle Awareness Month, and we all need to be aware of safety of all of the people who use our highways and byways, and the County of Buncombe proclaims Motorcycle Awareness Month, whereas Asheville and Buncombe County motorcyclists have banded together to actively promote a more positive image of motorcyclists, promote fair motorcycle legislation, and to ensure motorcyclist freedom, and whereas these motorcyclists are also working to eliminate prejudicial attitudes toward motorcyclists and promote participation in public service programs, and whereas these motorcyclists organize and participate in motorcycle safety education and rider training programs and public awareness programs, and whereas the Buncombe County chapter of Concerned Bikers Association of North Carolina has requested that the month of May be proclaimed Motorcycle Awareness Month, and whereas the board feels that it is in the best interest of all citizens to promote motorcycle safety awareness and to foster a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood among all users of our county roadways. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners of the County of Buncombe as follows, that the month of May 2014 be proclaimed Motorcycle Awareness Month in Buncombe County, that all citizens of Buncombe County are hereby encouraged to join area motorcyclists in an effort to improve traffic safety and increase motorcycle awareness, and that this proclamation be effective upon its adopted this the 13th day of May 2014, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners by Chairman David Gant.
Thank you. We're the Buncombe County Concerned Bikers Association. I am a woman, I'm a daughter, an aunt, and a motorcycle rider. I'm also a county employee. Most of the motorcycle accidents that involve another vehicle, over 70% of those are the fault of the other vehicle, and generally the driver says, I never saw the motorcycle. So that's what we're aiming toward. We want to remind everybody to watch your motorcycles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have 100 years of cooperative extension. I think Mr. Duckett's here. Steve Duckett with our cooperative extension to accept the proclamation. Vice Chair Frost will give the presentation.
I frequently brag a lot about Buncombe County services, and Steve Duckett is the answer man. He could even help me, whose house plants come to die in, how to make them better. And the connectivity that they do is amazing. The people that they connect with, it's the most wonderful, wonderful resource. And it's extraordinary what they do. But on a personal note, a few weeks ago, I was working with Asheville Humane to help find a home for, or a transport for a homeless pig named Mildred. And Mildred was quite large, and she could not travel in a conventional vehicle. Within minutes, Assistant County Manager Christain emailed Steve Duckett, and we came up with some solutions. So they are an incredible resource, and as we look at food, farm to table, they are doing an amazing job. So it's my great pleasure to give you this proclamation, which I will not read, but it's 100 years of cooperative extension.
Thank you, Commissioner Frost, board, and fellow county employees. At this point, I'd like to ask my staff, the 4-H leaders and volunteers, master gardeners, and 4-H'ers that have joined us tonight, if they would stand. I'd like to give these folks a round of applause. They're the ones that really make us look good. 100 years of cooperative extension. The Smith-Lever Act in 1914 established cooperative extension across the nation as an agency to improve farm prosperity, improve the level of rural living and economic development. And certainly those missions have carried through in large measure right down to today, whether it's finding transport for a kind of large hog that needs a home, to dying house plants, to improving crop production, to licensing applicators of pesticides and other materials, training youth in leadership and other forms of development to be good citizens. We appreciate the partnership Cooperative Extension has with county, state, and local government. Our commissioners, our fellow county employees are just super great to work with, very supportive atmosphere, and help us a great deal in serving the citizens of Buncombe County each day. In your bags, you will find at the table there, we just have some 100-year extension mementos. We hope that y'all will enjoy and find a little valuable in your day-to-day life. Being a state agency, they're not terribly expensive, but we hope that you will find them useful. Thanks so much for your support.
Why don't we get everybody to come up and get a picture? Let's do one proper. Why don't y'all come on up? We don't have a 100-year celebration every time.
Every year, yeah, for sure.
Y'all come on up here. I saw this lady. Could someone take a picture? Yeah, come on up here. Get in the podium there, folks. This is great. Y'all really do a lot.
You want to be in the picture? I'll take it. There you go.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We sure appreciate what you do. You touch a lot of lives. Next, we have public hearings. We're going to first hear from Mr. Frew about the Round-A-Bout Convalescent Ambulance franchise. Mr. Frew?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Commissioners, my pleasure here to be today to bring to you the matter of the application of Round-A-Bout Transportation Company. Round-A-Bout Transportation contacted me in early March. They had been speaking with state agencies, North Carolina Office of Emergency Medical Services, the Office of EMS, and to figure out what they needed to do to get a convalescent permitting in Buncombe County. Apparently, and they'll go into more detail, I'm just kicking off, but they found what they believe is a niche where they can provide service of the convalescent nature in Buncombe County. And by our ordinances, just to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about, the definition is officially the transportation of sick or infirm patients having a known non-emergency medical condition on a scheduled basis between facilities or between a residence and a facility. So they wrote me, and they met with Jerry Vihan and I. They included all the required aspects of an application for such a franchise. We followed up with a question regarding, what do you see? Can you explain the need for service? And they sent information and support from about 20 different agencies, nursing homes such as Bryan Center, Emerald Ridge, the Laurels of Green Tree, whatnot, that said they would see a need for such a service if they could arrange it and participate. And they also indicated that their base rental would be, or the base one-way charge would be $325 plus 9 cents per loaded mile. There was some question earlier about how do other counties do it? How does this fit in? I did a quick informal poll, and there's no set way to do it. For instance, one county said that they would be very worried if it was a small operation that charged a rate that would undercut the Medicare reimbursement. The $325 is about $100 more, so that shouldn't lead to a problem. What happened in that community was they wouldn't keep up their equipment in a proper manner, so they folded and the county hospital system had to take it over. One county, Wake, has a modern ordinance, and they allow any entity to come in and apply, large or small. It's an open market system. You just come in, meet the compliance, show that you comply with the requirements of the Office of EMS, and if it looks like you have a good plan, then you can join up and get a franchise. And again, one smaller county had two entities that were undercutting Medicaid. They had to close, and that county had to buy 3 trucks and take over the business. And they made out fine because they're getting the reimbursement rate, and that county is not in the hole. In this particular case, all aspects of the application are appropriate. It's just for this commission to decide whether or not a franchise should be offered to Round-A-Bout on these factors, which we currently have in our ordinance. And I just want to remind everybody, if you don't know this, but it's a 24-year-old ordinance, and what I'm going to propose later is that we rewrite the ordinance to bring it up to current standards, especially considering the insurance requirements and the Office of EMS for the state to bring all standards in the ordinance up to date. But currently we have indicated that if the county finds, as if the Board of Commissioners find, that the public convenience and necessity require the proposed ambulance service and it meets all the licensing requirements. And I mention that because I'm sure the Round-A-Bout folks, Mr. and Mrs. Stevenson, that are here will indicate that they sort of see a chicken and the egg, but it's sort of is and isn't. They can't get it. The state won't give them permits to run the business unless they have a franchise, and we can't give a franchise unless they have the permits. So if it is the board's pleasure to vote to grant them a franchise, then it'd just be contingent on them providing material to county attorney staff and to the EMS director that they've met the state requirements. So I'll be around for any questions you might have, and I'll turn it over to the Stevensons at this point. Yes.
I'm Irvin Stevenson, and I'm the owner of Round-A-Bout Transportation. I'm here today with my husband, Tom Stevenson, and others with whom we work. Actually, I was so happy to see one of our very special drivers arrive today. Tim is a vet of the Iraq War. He is a Marine vet, and he is an EMT, and he works with us. So thank you for being here, Tim, and others. As you know, we have applied for a franchise to provide non-emergency convalescent ambulance service in Buncombe County. I have emailed and mailed each of you a packet of information, and I've had the opportunity to speak to a few of you. So thank you very much for reading the materials that I sent. Round-A-Bout was started in 1995 as the original wheelchair accessible van service in Buncombe County. It was started out of care for people that are confined to wheelchairs but needed assisted transportation when none existed. So for 19 years, Round-A-Bout has been providing care to the elderly, the disabled, and the chronically ill residents of Buncombe County. The Round-A-Bout employees have years of experience helping people face the challenges of everyday life. Tom and I bought the company Round-A-Bout in October of 2011 because we recognized the value of the service the company offered. My grandparents, parents, all lived, grew old, and died in Buncombe County, and I know that there's a need for our kind of service. 98% of Round-A-Bout's clients are in care facilities. Tom and I visited each of the facilities when we bought the company to see how our, see if our service, how we were doing, and what was their greatest need. We wanted to know how we could serve them better. And overwhelmingly, they stated their need was for reliable convalescent ambulance transportation. Convalescent ambulance service is non-emergency transport from home to facility to doctor's appointments, to dialysis, to cancer treatment, rehabilitation treatments, and our clients at the facilities and individuals know that they can trust our quality of care. They know us and they trust us. And so for us, to move into the convalescent ambulance service is really a natural expansion of our current operation. We have provided you with letters of support for our application, and Mr. Frew mentioned some of those. We have letters from Care Partners, from Aston Park, Emerald Ridge, Arbor Terrace, the Laurels of Green Tree, and from Home Health providers, and we have received calls from many more, from Bryan Center in Weaverville, and from Mission's Cancer Center. We are an approved vendor to Mission Hospital. I mention these because these are the people we serve, and they are the ones asking us to provide the non-emergency stretcher service. Round-A-Bout is a low-cost provider. Our operational costs are low with little overhead. We are constantly looking for ways to improve our efficiencies, which lower costs and improve client services. Our stretcher vehicle is an extended van which is fuel efficient and low maintenance. This allows us to be a low-cost provider, which benefits the residents of Buncombe County. According to the ordinance, a requirement for granting a franchise is public convenience. At Round-A-Bout, our rides are pre-scheduled a day or a week in advance. We have clients who we keep going until they tell us to stop. They're in our books, and we go regularly and dependably. Our staff also verifies all our appointments in advance for time, for location, and for what time the appointment will be completed. Our drivers arrive early, and they are present when the appointment is over. This service is a great convenience to individuals, to out-of-town family members, and to busy facility transportation managers who can schedule multiple rides with one call. It's the responsibility of the care facilities to provide their residents with expedient care. They cannot afford to have them wait or miss a procedure. Transportation must be available when needed. The personal service that Round-A-Bout gives to our clients sets us apart from other providers. I believe that the people of Buncombe County should be allowed to have a choice, to have the opportunity to choose the best option for their transportation needs. If granted the franchise for convalescent ambulance service, Round-A-Bout would supply a needed non-emergency transportation service to the residents of Buncombe County, particularly the elderly and the chronically ill, would be a low-cost provider to the residents of Buncombe County, offer convenience of pre-scheduled and verified appointments with timely service, and treat each individual with dignity, patience, and kindness as they face the challenges of everyday living. The people we have the privilege to serve are often physically fragile and mentally fragile, and they need and want special attention. So I respectfully request that you vote for the approval of Round-A-Bout's application. Thank you.
Ms. Stevenson,
Questions?
let me. We're going to have a public hearing. Let me ask a question before we get started with that. What is the cost? Do you know the cost differential between the full emergency with service and the non-emergency service that you're talking about providing?
I believe from market research, and so I can't say exactly everybody, but I believe that we are about $100 less per call and about the same per mileage. We are proposing $9 a mile, and they are $8.75 a mile, but we're about $100 less for the initial call each way.
All right. Any other questions?
And so, so if someone had an eye appointment, they could call a week ahead and schedule that, and driver would be there at appropriate time and
Correct.
kind of
Sure.
guess
Michael.
out of it.
That's right.
Turn your mic on.
And then our staff in the office, before that, if someone calls a week ahead, and then before that actual happens, then we verify with the doctor's office and with the person who called us at the doctor's office to verify that they are in fact on the books, you know, the doctor's appointment and the time and the location, because some doctors have multiple locations. And so if someone calls and says, I have an appointment with Dr. So-and-so on Tuesday, that doctor may be somewhere else on Tuesday. So we verify all that, the location and the time.
You're receiving calls from predominantly the nursing home or the facilities?
Predominantly.
Okay.
We have some people that call us, you know, individuals, but predominantly, yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we go into public hearing? Mayor Vihan, do you have any comments? Thank you, Ms. Stevenson. Kenny Vihan is Director of our Emergency Services and Mayor of the great town of Woodfin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I sat down, as you heard, on a couple of meetings with these folks, and familiar with what they're asking today, and then was asked by some of you what my feeling was. Is there a real need for another franchise operator? And we have one already in Buncombe County for convalescent service. And I can't stand here and tell you there's a need for another person to have a franchise, because we're making all these calls now, and from the county standpoint, we don't take convalescent calls unless they're backed up somewhere and it ends up where we have to make them. But we are making these calls between us and the other provider, and I just quite frankly can't recommend awarding another franchise for convalescent ambulance service in Buncombe County at this time.
Mr. Vihan. It's with the awarding or not awarding this, is there any negative or positive impact on the county? Is the county affected any way when our services?
No, sir. Either way it goes, it won't affect us.
Okay.
Does the other franchise set up appointments? Do we know?
I have no idea how they operate on the convalescent calls.
Could you make any other comments just about the? I mean, I hear you that there's not necessarily a positive recommendation behind it, but could you articulate any other thoughts in terms of, in the public interest, any negatives that would be associated with this, or positives?
I have no opinion one way or the other.
Okay.
Any other questions for Stevenson's or Mr. Behan or Mr. Frew? Mr. Fry? Commissioner?
We've had as Mr. Frew said, we've had a franchise in effect for basically since 95, 96.
Somewhere along in there.
I think that we ought to get the franchise together with you, do a new one, because things have changed in the last amount of years totally. Because we've had things to happen in the last 6 months on emergency services. So there's things that we need to try to figure out how to fix in the process, including help these people and help the other services, because our services are getting bigger. I mean, I see more ambulances out. I see more fire departments with services now. Fairview's got a new fire engine, or new ambulance. So, as you said, the county's having to help pick some of it up. And I don't know if these people are wanting to go with an ambulance or they just stay with the vans that they got with an upright bed in it. And but until I would like to see Mr. Frew and the county manager and the group put together a franchise, get a new franchise agreement with you to try to get this back on a pointed area that's outgrown itself in the last 25 years, Jerry. So, I'm with you on the fact, let's don't do anything right now. Let's see where we can go. If we can help the people later, let's do it. But I still think that let's leave it to the staff and let's regroup this emergency services plan that we have, plus the convalescent plan and any other thing, even the plans with the fire departments, their emergency services and that. Let's get something new in place and go from that point. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
The fire departments don't do this type of thing, do they?
What? I didn't understand that.
The fire departments don't do non-emergency transport, do they?
Some of them do.
Do they?
Some of them take every call that comes up in their fire district. Some of them do emergencies only, but some of them, I guess most of them do everything that comes their way.
Okay. Is there any harm in creating more competition with the franchises? Is that detrimental to the community? That end up helping?
I can't really give you an opinion on that. If you had more competition, you'd have to wait and see how it kind of fell out there.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, let's hear from the public. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's hear from the public. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:37. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this application for franchise? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's the most discussion I've heard from you all in years. Congratulations. Competition. You heard about domestic violence. For 28 years or so, we had a DA, and he worked on domestic violence and done a pretty good job. But a team got together, and they are figuring out new ways. Now, that ought to be a good metaphor of what we're looking at right here. Don't close the door when somebody comes and offers herself for service. Say, hey, come on in. Let's see how we can do business. I'm a businessman. I don't mind competition. There've been plenty of people come and told me they're going to put me out of business, and I've been in business 30 years. They ain't put me out yet. Competition is good. And if you're afraid of competition, you must have something to hide. And when you have a director that don't entertain it and don't have an opinion, how about asking him to get the facts? Because a man that is evasive, as he was right here, needs to be held accountable. And I hope you do. Thank you, Mr. Fry, for offering that suggestion. You did a good job. We need to have accountability. If we're going to protect kids and people in domestic violence in the early life, we need to protect and help in the older life. I'm getting there, and I might need a ride in the ambulance. So I'd appreciate anybody, because when they pick me up, I don't care what color they are, what they look like, or how big, how little, as long as they get me there. So we need to be open for something here and quit shutting the door. We wouldn't get our trash picked up if we didn't have an open mind to franchise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Any other public comment? All right. I'll declare the public hearing closed at 5:40.
Mr. Gann, I have a follow-up question for Mr. Frew.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Frew, could you, I guess I just want to ask you the kind of the same question in terms of when you think about this request, if you could summarize from the staff's perspective any fundamental arguments for this in the public interest and any downsides you would see in terms of the public interest and in terms of how we make this decision.
I'll try. I think, Commissioner Newman, the emails that I received from various nursing home and assisted living all saw a need for this additional service. I saw at least 20 of those kind of emails. So there's no question that there's some people out there that see a need. The Stevensons have described their base business as doing the transport for wheelchair bound for many years and then buying their company. And then those people are also aging out individually and they need different cares. They need different types of transport, being the convalescent transport we're discussing today. I think concerning the concerns of New Hanover County and Brunswick County, where entities were small operators but were undercutting what they would get from Medicare as a reimbursement, it seems to me that this addresses the need because they're about $100. $211 is the reimbursement rate here, I think. So $325 is about $100 more, I think. As a matter of course, regionally we would charge $411. Whether we'd get that or not, I don't know. More often than not, just get the Medicare reimbursement. So it seems that it would be adequately funded to make sure that they'd be able to move forward in a proper manner.
Thank you. And any other potential downsides that you would see to it from if we do move forward on this at this time that you could identify for us?
Not really. If the information, from my view, from the 20-odd agencies that see a need or having that need and want help, then it's just helping to fill that need. I mean, they cannot legally fill that need without a franchise and without permittings from the state, and we're back into that chicken and the egg.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Frew, if a franchise was granted and the business wasn't there, would the Stevensons or anybody else, any other franchisee, be able just to say that we're not going to do that anymore or turn the franchise back if there wasn't the business?
I would think so. I think, as Mr. Vihan was indicating, that there is capacity within the current system of EMS transport for Buncombe County to pick up most of the slack if it's there. So I guess that's the basis for his opinion that there is a franchise. Maybe there's, from individual providers' perspective, a need to fill a void, but generally it sounds like the EMS system and the fire departments can fill that void. So I don't know. It's just a matter of how this board wants to accommodate a need that, in its considered opinion, may or may not exist.
Any other questions, comments?
Do you anticipate a certain time on bringing the rewriting of the franchise to us?
I discussed that with the county manager, and I hope to bring it within sometime next month. I have started taking some stabs at it, and it shouldn't be too horribly difficult, but What I see is insurance requirements, and I communicated that to the Stevensons, and I think they will be adequately insured. The old ordinance says $100,000 and $300,000, which just doesn't go anywhere this day and age. I think specifically we need reapplication processes, certifications for compliance with the Office of EMS for the state and the county and whatever provision of services they're providing. And also there needs to be, I think, a limit onto the franchise requiring a reapplication every 5 years. So I would suggest it's not in the ordinance now, but my idea would be to follow the Wake model, and if this board is of the opinion to grant the franchise, that you give it any length of time in your discretion, not more than 5 years, and allow them to reapply every 5 years thereafter. And then there'd be the usual termination provisions if they aren't providing the service or if for any reason they become uncertified by the state.
So when the franchise is rewritten, will everyone that has a franchise with the county, will they have to come under that? Will that have to be redone? Will all those things have to be addressed?
I would think that it won't affect the Round-A-Bout operation because they're working closely with the state now to make sure they're properly permitted and licensed. I would just suggest to the board on the rewrite that you just pick some reasonable length of time, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, starting some X date. Any existing franchise would have to reapply, but we would start Round-A-Bout on their own new time frame if their franchise is granted. Say, you're good now for 5 years, you reapply in 5 years, but in the meantime, you stay certified.
And Round-A-Bout, are we talking you're going to have an ambulance type, or it's just going to be a van?
Come on up here.
Please.
Yeah, please come up, Irvin. Just.
Well, it's what it is the vehicle is a vehicle that is approved by the state, and it is an extended van design, not the box type of design. And it has, just by regulations, has to be a certain size. It does not have lights and sirens. It does not have, it has fewer medical equipment, less serious. I mean, it doesn't have the same medical equipment that a basic life support, an advanced life support, or a paramedic life ambulance has.
So basically, the franchised one we have now has an ambulance with all the life support, lights, the whole package.
That's right.
And you're just talking $100 less. And these people have basically these ambulances are like $138,000 plus defibrillators and all that on them to take these people in. So that's I'm still want to see a rewrite of the franchise totally, because I can't see giving somebody an option to cut somebody $100. Yeah, cut $100. And you have a van versus the vehicles that they've been using, which is an ambulance.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry if I interrupted you. I think that is the good thing, actually, is that our van is low maintenance and low cost, and it is comfortable for the person that wants to go in a convalescent situation. I would just, sir, believe that our clients would prefer to go in the comfort of an extended van rather than ambulance, that when they do not need to get into a big ambulance with all this sort of scary medical equipment, they don't need it. These, for the most part, are elderly people or chronically ill people that do not need and require heavy medical attention. They need to have they're handheld, but they need to know that they're safe in the vehicle. We will have 2 EMTs aboard every ambulance. So we are going to take good care of the clients. They do not need, we are so thankful, very, very thankful that there are ambulances there for emergency situations. But we believe that the non-emergency type vehicle that the state says to use for if you're doing just non-emergency convalescent service is the right vehicle and the best vehicle for what we're doing.
But we have services already, and Mr. Vihan has spoke, that have the other vehicles. So if we're taking business away from the ones that spend $130,000 for a product versus what you spend for a van, we're hurting some. And I agree, everybody should be able to have a business. I'm 100% there. There should be competition. But when the competition is a different field, ambulance with bed versus van with bed, ambulance with stuff that can be utilized on it versus a van just to take somebody somewhere, and the numbers are just so small apart. You get more for your mileage than the other vans, or Buncombe County or whatever. You said they get $8.75, you get $9, but you charge $100 less. Whatever Medicaid or Medicare pays, that's basically what Buncombe County gets, and the other ambulance services around, whatever they bill. If they bill them $400, $500, whatever they decide to pay, that's what they're going to have. My personal self, I'm just still going to back up. Mr. Frew, Ms. Green, and Jerry, we need to redo the total franchise agreement. It's sitting here too long, too old, and and come. I'd say for y'all to come back later, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Is there a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion to, yes, and incidentally, my motion to support this franchise does, I'm also supportive of rewriting the ordinance as well, so I don't see those as mutually exclusive. So I make a motion that we issue this ambulance franchise for Round-A-Bout.
I'll second it.
Been a motion by Commissioner Jones, a second by Vice Chair Frost.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just offer, would you want to set that, as I mentioned earlier, for a specified time, or do we want to visit that later?
No, I'd like to do what you tell me to do around that. And,
I would just suggest, my dream for drafting the rewrite is to say that the board could vote for a franchise for any length of time it deems best in its discretion, but not to exceed 5 years, and then to reapply at that time.
I would like that language included in my.
And I'd like to make a request. We do have a really busy June schedule and not a lot of meetings in July. So if we could get it back in August, it would be most helpful for me.
Sure, that's fine.
Well, with your direction, I could draft the ordinance, now, and we could do that in August.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
All right. So as I understand the motion, then as amended, and I guess Commissioner Frost, that it would be to support the franchise application and to until the new franchise is adopted. Is that what you're saying?
The maximum time of 5 years.
Grant the franchise for a period
Up to
of 5 years.
Okay,
No,
so
for a period of 5 years.
So your motion is to grant it for the 5 years, and also ask, and then I guess I'll just take it as a separate matter to talk
Yes.
about the ordinance.
Separate matter.
Separate matter.
Yes.
Okay, I think okay, and that would. I think Commissioner Fryer suggested a motion. I'm going to go ahead and take this motion, Mr. Dortch, in my discretion, as a motion to grant it. And I think if someone wanted to do to delay it, they could just vote against it. Would I have the discretion to do that?
Are you talking about Ms. Jones's motion?
Jones and Fryer kind of sort of made a motion that suggested to delay it. I don't want to ignore his comments. I didn't hear a motion, but I think in my discretion I'd like to just take the motion that that Commissioner Jones has put up and seconded by Commissioner Frost, and handle that. And then if that passes, I guess that obliviates any need for a second motion. Yes.
Suggestion is that the entire matter be tabled until later. I'm sorry.
Or should I vote on the tabling first?
I think you should vote on the tabling first.
Okay.
Did he make a motion, though?
I don't think he did.
He didn't make a motion, and there wasn't a second.
I'd like to make a motion to table.
I think Mr. Fryer ought to make a motion to table the matter before you take a motion to approve or not approve.
For the reason of the franchise, because I think that's what he said.
Okay. I think my ruling will be that we will take a motion to table first, because that's probably a better order now that I think about it. And that's why I wanted to ask you to get your feel. Is that what your opinion would be?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have a motion to table the franchise application by the Stevensons and Round-A-Bout Convalescents until we prepare a new ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a motion by Commissioner Fryer, second by Commissioner Belcher. Is there any discussion of this? Any further discussion of this motion?
I just have one question for our attorney. Do you have any concerns about it, about us granting the franchise and then rewriting the ordinance?
No, none,
Okay,
because
that's
they
all I
have
needed
to
to know.
comply with all state and local standards.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about the motion? We'll vote on the motion to table. If the motion to table is defeated, we will vote on the Commissioner Jones's motion to grant the franchise.
I just have a quick comment and question. I'll vote against the motion to table it. I just haven't heard any reasons to be concerned about moving forward with this at this time. Well, just one clarification, though. This is just it's actually clarification maybe on the other motion that we might get to if this one doesn't pass. Is if we do approve it tonight, though the idea was that it could be no more than 5 years, but if we adopt a future revisions to the overall ordinance that says that companies operating under this statute need to come back, let's say we'd say every 4 years, then this company, Round-A-Bout, would have to come back in 4 years. Am I understanding that correctly? So it's no more than 5 years, but if we end up saying in a master ordinance, everyone comes back every 4 years, then it would be 4 years, not 5 years?
Well, this will be an ordinance, and I think when you draft it and everybody signs on to it and commits to it, you have to treat that as a contract. I would say Commissioner Jones's motion, from my view, is to grant the franchise for a period of 5 years under the existing ordinance. Since they have to comply with all state, local, and federal laws regarding convalescent, I think it's for 5 years. And
Okay,
then
so
if that needs to phase
it would
in,
be for that period, and then if there's the master ordinance says there's a general renewal every 4 years, then outside of that, that's what everyone would operate under.
I think they just have to phase into that.
Okay, thank you.
So are they going to come under the new ordinance?
Currently, yeah. I mean, but the rewrite would not
But they would come under our
practically
current ordinance.
under the current, but a rewrite would not fundamentally change anything.
Because they're working with state guidelines and.
We're just smoothing out our process, and they have to comply
So
with
your
state
point,
guidelines.
I think, are you saying, Mr. Frew, that basically the changes you envision that you will propose to us would not affect anything they're doing now? They're already doing or exceeding that?
Yeah, we're not throwing out any baby with any dishwater. It's
Right.
just, we're just
Okay.
fixing the ordinance.
All right. Everybody, any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. There's a motion to table the franchise application by Convalescent, Round-A-Bout Convalescent, made by Commissioner Jones, second by Vice Chair Frost. All those in favor?
Wait.
Table was made by Mr. Fryer.
Backwards.
I'm sorry, I'm Mr. Fryer and seconded by Commissioner Belcher. That's the motion. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to table the franchise agreement, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
The motion is defeated 2-5. Commissioners Fryer and Belcher in favor. Now, we have a motion on the table from Commissioner Jones to support the franchise application under the current ordinance that was seconded by Vice Chair Frost. Is there any further discussion of that motion? If not, I'll call the question on that. All those in favor of granting the franchise application of Round-A-Bout Convalescent under our current ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No. No.
The motion to grant the franchise is adopted 5-2. Commissioners Belcher and Fryer against. Thank you. And I don't know if we need a motion. I think we just give direction to come back to us in August with the changes.
Yes, sir, will do.
Okay. All right, thank you. The next public hearing we have is a rezoning request by Lifeway Christian Conference Center. We will take public comment on this. Josh O'Connor, if you'll tell us a little bit about this. I'm sorry, Borg Warner. Excuse me. Strike that. Let's go with Economic Development Incentive for Borg Warner, and we have Mr. John Creighton to talk to us about that. Also have Ben Teague in the building, or is.
Mr. Chairman, board members, just to kind of give you a little history on this incentive is that back in March of last year, I was contacted by Tim Lampkin with EDC, the Economic Development part of the Chamber, about a possible expansion for Borg Warner. At that time, Borg Warner was looking at adding 154 jobs with an average salary of $74,571 and making an investment, a capital investment of $54,956,000 over a 5-year period. That time I talked to the board members. I recommended an incentive of $1,926,600 that would be payable over 5 years, and that would be in 5 equal payments of $385,320. I think when I asked Judy to bring up the first chart, just talking about the jobs, when you look at the jobs, 154 jobs, those are all direct jobs. Now, when you add that the induced jobs, that when I say, or the indirect jobs first, those are jobs that, okay, now the plant is expanded, it needs more parts, so there are more people driving trucks to the facility. We've got a bigger area, so we got to hire janitorial staff to come in and clean, so those are jobs. So those create about 113 jobs. And then you look at the induced jobs, being that now I've got a $74,000 job, I can take my wife out to eat, more on the weekends. I can go have my teeth fixed, so now the dentist has to hire an extra dental hygienist. So those are the induced jobs, which, you know, the 154 jobs all of a sudden really equate to 375 jobs in our economy. And I think it's really important to talk about the salary. When I talk about the $74,571, the average wage in Buncombe County is $37,284, which is just about exactly half of the $74,571. And I think that's real important. And I think that also, you know, you hear people say, well, when you talk about $74,000 average, well, there's probably a few people that are making a lot of money, and then there's a lot of people that are making a lot less money. And in this case, this is not true. When you look at the job breakdown, what Borg Warner's proposing to do is that there's 63 of these 154 jobs that will be making over $100,000. These are all engineering jobs. 6 of the jobs of the 154 will be making between $94,000 and $98,000. So they're right at the $100,000 threshold. When you look at on the low end, there are 33 jobs that are assemblers. They're paying $47,000 each, which is $10,000 more than the average. And then at the next level, you have 40 jobs that are making, they're machinists that are making $56,800, which is just about $400 short of being $20,000 more than the average. So I would say that all 154 jobs here are very good jobs and something to be very excited about. Just the next chart, I'd just talk a little bit more about the economy and what happens on our return on investment. Just to recap again, our incentive would be paid over 5 years at $1,926,600. But when you look at those direct jobs, over a 5-year period, those $74,000 average jobs at 154 put $57 million into our economy. You take that indirect, being the janitorial staff or people driving parts of the plant, 113 jobs put another $21 million into the economy. And then you got that indirect or induced is that, okay, I've hired more restaurant staff or whatever, is 108 jobs at another $18 million. And you look at the return on investment just for taxes being property taxes, sales tax, personal property tax, fees, that's another $10 million for a total over a 5-year period of almost $108 million. So I think that when you look at this as a whole, this is a very exciting project. I mean, obviously, they're making a big investment in our community, but they're bringing 154 direct jobs and really 375 jobs combined to the community. So I'd like to ask if you've got any questions. Also, the Leo Pena, who's HR director with Borg Warner's here, and also Sean Maloney, who's the CFO, is also here, and I would like to ask them to come up and say a few words.
Do you want the questions now?
Sure.
One, I have a comment, is I like the way that you broke those jobs down to show that they're, the 33, that's 47,000, and because there might be some people out there that may be thinking, well, these jobs are not reachable for me, or they may not touch me or touch my family, and this really breaks it down, and I appreciate you doing this. And I do have a question regarding working with local AB Tech and the community college as far as how they're going to be filling some of these positions, if that's part of the equation too.
Yeah, and the state has come up with training money to help train people. Obviously, machinists, the 60 odd jobs that I talked about, those are engineering jobs. So yes, AB Tech will be involved, and as they always are, in getting our citizens up to the level where, yes, they can be hired.
Mr. Chairman, you mind if I make a comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. George.
Yes, I just want to say that I've reviewed the contract that the county is proposing entering into with the company, and I think they have a very clear and a very good process, for making sure that the company will live up to its commitments. So I just wanted that on the table too when the commission was.
Thank you.
Chairman Gant, if I could follow up on that, because
Yes,
that just drill down a little bit for the public in terms of that, comfort that you get from reading that document. So what I hear from that is there's accountability that these jobs will be created at the level that we signed the contract for, and that the investment that they say that will happen, there'll be some type of quality control circle around.
Oh, yes.
So.
Yes, and also the incentive does not get paid up front all at the same time. It gets paid over 5 years, depending upon complying with certain goals. And they also have to prove that they complied with the goals, and there's some clawback if they don't. So I thought it was a very clearly worded agreement in between everybody.
What we do before we make that payment each year is that Gary Roberts and his staff go out and see what the investment is, and there are, as the county attorney said, there are levels that they have to meet each year. Then, as far as the jobs, is that there's a unemployment insurance form that's filed with the Security Exchange Commission, so it's very easy to verify the number of jobs that are created.
Thank you. It's helpful.
Go ahead, Jim.
All right.
Thank you for being here.
But I just thank the board for allowing Sean Maloney and I to be here. I think on behalf of Borg Warner, we're thankful to the county as well as to the state to be partners with us in this initiative. The market is increasing. The market is becoming more demanding when it comes to turbos, as the efficiency of engines and the emission standards are changing. Turbos is a very good way to meet those standards. So we see that in the marketplace, and we are complying with the market demand. So it's just basic market and demand, so supply and demand. So. I don't know if you have any other questions. Or.
Well, it seems like you've been here before. Borg Warner, it seems like I've voted many times for incentives, and you've always delivered. We appreciate that.
We appreciate being part of the community. So.
Well, we appreciate you expanding job market and doing a good product out there.
I have something to say.
Yes, sir.
It don't consist of this, but it does consist of Borg Warner. If my memory's not failing me, Borg Warner is community-based, but they've sure helped honor flights more than one time to get our World War II veterans to D.C. So I applaud y'all for that, too.
Thank you. I think we do a very good job of helping out the community and a lot of the endeavors that we do there. What we don't do a good job is publicizing it, and I think we need to do a better job of letting the community know that we're here and that we do those things. So.
All right. Any questions for these gentlemen before we start our public hearing?
Well, I can tell you that out in the community, they know you're there. There's a lot of people that do talk about you, and they do appreciate the fact that you're there and the fact you choose to stay here and you choose to continue to invest in our county and in our children, and we appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. If not, we'll start our public hearing. Thank you, gentlemen. Public hearing will start at 6:09. Does any member of the public wish to be heard on the $1.9 million proposed incentives for Borg Warner? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 6:10 p.m. John, anything else?
Well, this is the third incentive that we've had with Borg Warner. Over the years, I can remember probably 15 years ago started the first one. But, I mean, this is a case where we grow our own. I mean, come up, they're here, and, I mean, we want them to be a part of the community, and we treat them as good or better as anybody else that comes through the door. And that's what's exciting thing about it is that they're here, they're willing to invest, just like was mentioned, and that's what's really exciting about it.
How long have they been here, John?
Gosh,
how long have y'all been here?
1977. So
the plant was started in '77. It opened the doors in 1980 for the first production. Company's been here that whole time and providing for the community. It was struggled on and off for a number of years, and when Borg Warner took it over in 1999, it took off. But it's always been a steadfast employer in the county. I went to work there in 1980 when it opened, and I know a lot of the employees there. And this is about real people. It's not about we can talk about incentives, but the bottom line, we're talking about people's lives. And this company has done a great deal for the area and will continue to. And we are in the marketplace. When we use incentives, we're competing with other communities, other counties, other states. So we are in very much an open market, and I'm very excited that Borg Warner chose to relocate that here, and it's a great thing for Buncombe County.
Exactly. I mean, when I guess Tim first called me, it was, okay, it's not only foreign countries, but it's a plant right down the road that we're also competing with. So it's very important that we stand up and support our local companies.
And I would recognize Tim Lampkin also here with Ben Teague. Thank you for being here. That sounds like a motion to me. I'm going to take that as a motion to approve the economic incentive from Commissioner Keene.
I'll second it.
Second by Vice Chair Frost. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the incentive as stated, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have rezoning Lifeway Christian Conference Center, R1PS to CR. Josh, tell us about it.
Yes, sir. Give me just a second for my maps to come up here. As the Board of Commissioners will recall, the Conference Center is something or the Conference Center and Resort District is something new that's come out of our 2013 comprehensive plan. Ridgecrest is one of the first facilities to apply to have that zoning designation applied to their property. They're currently zoned, for the most part, public service. As you see from the maps there are a couple of straggler parcels that are outliers that are also zoned R1. When we took this to Planning Board originally, they do own some property that's not adjacent to that big blob that you see there on the screen, and after some discussions with the community members, they took those parcels away because they did make it appear as if it was a spot zoning for those specific parcels. The staff analysis is that we recommend approval of this rezoning. Ridgecrest was one of the facilities recommended in the land use plan by name. We feel that by unifying the zoning districts to create something specific for conference centers and resorts, when we need to make updates and changes to the zoning code, we're not going to have to pursue those changes across multiple zoning districts, and we can say this is a a new type of recreation that's occurring across the board within conference centers, and we can apply it universally. So that's the way that we're looking at this. The Board of Commissioners will see several of these coming before you in the next couple of months, but like I said, this is the first one. And we can just look briefly at the land use maps and the topo maps. It's a little bit difficult to see the topo, so I'm just going to advance beyond that one. If I can get it to advance. Okay. Aerial photo doesn't show much. One thing that you will notice is a substantial portion of the property is very steep. A lot of it falls within either our protected ridge or steep slope high elevation overlay districts. One thing I did want to note is that changing the underlying zoning designation from PS to Conference Center and Resort District does not remove any of the protections that are currently there as a result of those overlays. Land use considerations, constraints. The areas in red are probably the most important that you see there. Those are some of the steepest portions, and as I said, those are already protected by overlay districts. The zoning in the area, in the upper right-hand quadrant there, you see the large purple area. That's the area under discussion at this time. It is bordered by the yellow and light green residential districts. Those are R1 and R2. And then out in the area, we also have some residential low-density districts as well. And those are the maps that I have before you. I'll just reiterate that this is a rezoning that we're recommending for as staff, and I can take any questions that you may have at this time.
Josh, would you remind us what this new zoning designation is, what's different about it than the other ones?
So what we did when we created this is we took the public service zoning designation and we looked at some of the uses that we were most frequently having requested by our conference centers and resort summer camps, most of them to do with recreational uses, a lot of passive recreation, things like swimming pools, and we wanted to make sure that those were clearly articulated within this district. So there's not a huge difference yet between public service and the conference center and resort district, but the intent is to allow them to evolve separately over time. Public service would be something like a governmental institution or a large college campus, and as we understand the context of land use more in both of those uses, they will grow apart a little bit, but for the most part, there's not a large fundamental shift in what's allowed in either district. The biggest thing the biggest shift that we've seen is for recreational uses and a more explicit calling out of those recreational uses.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and start the public hearing on this consideration at 6:17. Are there any members of the public wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
My name is John. My wife Valentina and I are here representing 8 members of our community, our immediate neighbors. I spoke on the phone with Josh. Josh doesn't know me except John Brown. We spoke when you had the hearing for moving from public space to conference center and resort. And our concern was, what does that mean? What is the overall impact of that change? And I went on the website and I looked at what specifically is the new zoning for conference center and resort. And it lists a big number of things. There could be a laundromat, there could be a power substation, there could be a daycare center, there could be all sorts of activities that could be constructed and used in a conference center and a resort area. And as Josh pointed out in his maps, we live within that district of the big red and purple. Now, I've been visiting Ridgecrest Conference Center since 1953, and I've had a lot of guidance from Ridgecrest. We loved the place. We loved it so much we retired and moved back to the summer cabin that we used to visit and have made it our home. Our only concern now is that if we give a blanket approval to all of those little plots that were R1 as is our property. Can Ridgecrest or Lifeway, and if there's someone here on behalf of Lifeway, can they tell us that in that little piece of property next to me that was R1 that now becomes conference center and resort, can that now become a power substation? Will it? So what we're here to say is we would love for you to give them a blanket acceptance because they need to utilize the property for recreation, et cetera, et cetera. But we would ask that you be cautious about those 10 or 12 or how many have been listed here. Perhaps they should have some conditional attachment to it, small as it might be, so that in the case when they do want to use that half acre that's next to my 1/3 acre, it doesn't just, become a nuisance, but that you do give some consideration to that. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't speak very well.
No, you're speaking real well.
fine.
But I just
very
would
well.
I'd just like to say that Lifeway's, it's our neighbor. We love them. We grew up with them. And that's my time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
You put it across very well. Any other members of the public wish to be heard on this application? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 6:21. Josh, would you address Mr. Brown's concerns?
Sure, and I was doing better before I lost my piece of paper. There are only 2 parcels under the current proposal that are zoned R1, and those are either adjacent or right within the current PS zoning. There were more R1 parcels that were grouped throughout the neighborhood, and after the planning board hearing and some discussions with the community, the planning board recommended against the zoning of those or rezoning of those particular parcels. We communicated with Ridgecrest, and they were willing to remove them from the request altogether.
Mr. Brown's property or adjoining property part of that?
I couldn't tell you that without a more detailed map, but I do know that it's only 2 R1 parcels at this time.
Question for Josh. Are any of the things that the gentleman mentioned, are they conditional or permitted? Or
a number of them.
I didn't have the list there.
Yeah, a number of them are conditional, and the way to look at it is to look at, for the bulk of the property, for the public service district, to compare that to the current PS zoning, and I was doing that as Mr. Brown was speaking, and there's really not a huge difference. One difference that sticks out is the allowance of retail trade, and that's something that the camps ask us to allow for commissaries and small stores on their facilities, and we know that there's already some of that going on. There are some allowances for travel trailers or recreational vehicles to be used on a temporary basis, and that's to allow for temporary staff housing. Those are the things that stick out to me the most. Both public service and the conference center resort district bounce back and forth between permitted and conditional. And the other thing that I'll say is this is like most projects that we see. If they're building more than 2 buildings on a single property or more than 35,000 square feet in one building, that's going to trigger our conditional use process anyway. And it'll bring that before the Board of Adjustment. I know in the case of this specific rezoning, we already have a request for a 5-year master plan that was just submitted to us yesterday for Crest Ridge and Ridgecrest to do their expansion plans for the camp. And that'll be a process very similar to this that'll be open for the public to review.
So that should help Mr. Brown there in the future.
This is the same Lifeway that was going to put the solar plant on the property?
It was going to go on their property, correct. And I will say on their behalf that once we were able to open up that line of conversation with them directly rather than talking to the individual that was attempting to construct the solar facility, which was a company out of Arizona, they were very willing to work with us and very responsive to the things we were asking.
Do you think they were willing to work with you because of the steep slope ordinance and so much of would have been affected with that?
There was a a large portion that was in the steep slope ordinance, and there was also a large portion that was bordering the existing residential community, and that's one of the things that gave us some of the greatest concern is the lack of controls we would have had there, and they addressed those pretty immediately.
Thank you.
So you have, let me make sure I get this, there are 2 parcels of land that are going to be swept into this that didn't ask for this. Is that what you're saying?
No, they're currently zoned R1. I believe what happened is from the initial zoning of the Ridgecrest properties, these were properties that were later acquired by the camp, and there was never any rezoning done. All the properties that are under discussion today are under the ownership of Lifeway or one of its related entities.
Okay, so there's nothing, Mr. Brown's not going to have, he's not going to be swept into this at all.
That's correct. We verified that as we were doing this rezoning, just to make sure that there wasn't any mistakes about, somebody accidentally thought they owned a property that they didn't.
Well, I wouldn't support if someone got swept in against their wishes.
No, that's something we've been very careful with all the conference center and resort districts, because this scenario occurs where you have residential properties right up against a camp or a similar facility, and we've been very careful not to even accidentally or inadvertently bring somebody into the district.
So if there's anything added to this, they'll have to come back and ask to get it added on.
For the most part, on those larger parcels in the camp, that's what we've run into for several years now. I mean, that was one of the impetuses for considering this in the first place, is to make sure that we were addressing the uses that they were even proposing. For some of the smaller parcels that are separate from the camp, they could propose that there be a power utility station there. But and if you'll give me just a second to flip through the zoning, that's something that could happen whether it was zoned R1 or Conference Center and Resort. Public utility stations are conditional under R1. If they're less than 2 acres, they are permitted under CR. And then if they're over 2 acres, they're conditional in all districts. So, I mean, it's a possibility under the current zoning. And the way to think about that is with a conditional use, if the applicant satisfies the requirements of that conditional use, then for the most part, the Board of Adjustment is obligated to approve that permit. And it's a relatively simply laid out set of conditions that involve buffering and ensuring that engineering is in place, but it wouldn't be hard to do on an R1 parcel, and we've already had that discussion with several utilities.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Belcher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner King. Is there any discussion of approving the Lifeway Christian rezoning request? I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
The the motion carries 6-1. Vice Chair Frost against. Thank you. Next, we have the Airport Industry District Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment. Mr. O'Connor, tell us about that.
Okay. And another PowerPoint that'll be coming up on the screen here momentarily. Go. Wait for the PowerPoint to catch up with me. All right, so the purpose of this set of amendments is very similar to what we did with the Conference Center and Resort District. We're working very hard to create zoning districts that are a little bit more nuanced, that will allow us to have the appropriate level of control over uses while also allowing the appropriate breadth within a particular category of uses. So this creates a district which would specifically address the unique land use needs and concerns associated with the Asheville Regional Airport, as well as to create opportunities through zoning for aviation-related industries. Right now, as it stands today, our zoning ordinance doesn't have any mention of all of anything more than a landing strip, so nothing to do with aviation maintenance, large-scale runways, and this is an effort to fix that. This was addressed specifically in the September 17th, 2013 update to the Buncombe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. And it's justified under Zoning Enhancement Section 6, Issues and Recommendations, and that's where all the amendments that we've been bringing forward to you come from. Conceptual discussion of the district has been ongoing for some time. Since we received the airport within our zoning jurisdiction by an act of the General Assembly, we've been working to try to figure out how we're going to work with that and what land use controls we need to have in place. As part of this discussion, we've had discussion with the Planning Board, and we've also had a direct line of communication with the Asheville Regional Airport itself, who have had an opportunity to review the proposed amendments and make comments. And we were very receptive to the changes that they asked be made, because what we wanted to do is create a zoning district that accounted for the plans and expansions that they had on the books. The issue that we have, I've kind of hit on it before, is that the current zoning designation for the airport is public service. It's not appropriate for an operation of an airport and related facilities. One of the roadblocks that we're running into is right now the airport's running as a legal non-conforming use, which allows it to operate. They can rebuild the airport, but any expansion over a certain size is basically prohibited at this point because public service does not explicitly allow for airport uses. So we're trying to correct that and get ahead of the airport's work on its own master plan to make sure that in the future the airport can bring these expansions forward, and we aren't going to run into any roadblocks with zoning. The reason that it was stuck in public service is we found out that the General Assembly was removing Asheville's jurisdiction over the airport from a zoning and land use standpoint. It was then put within our jurisdiction, and we had to apply the most appropriate district that we had at the time. The recommendation is that we create an airport industrial district which accounts for land use needs of the Asheville Regional Airport, while also allowing industrial and commercial uses which are related to the operation of an airport. To get into that a little bit further, the way that we see this working is this is something that we would work with the airport to apply to the current airport property, and it would also be made available to anybody that wanted to rezone property adjacent to the airport for the expansion of aviation-related uses and economic development projects. So it's a little bit more flexible than just an airport district. It does allow for some future industries that may be related to aviation. So at this point, I can take any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I ask a question? You mind if I ask a question?
Yes, sir, please.
Yes, Josh. I was looking at the table of potential permitted uses, and I noticed that you had subdivisions on there as a permitted use. And I wondered, did you just mean like an industrial subdivision or residential subdivision? And if so, if it is residential, did you mean that to go in this particular type district?
Subdivision means any subdivision of land from a legal plat or deed standpoint. We've already had one case where property is being held in leasehold at the airport, and we do anticipate that they may need to break chunks off to use mechanisms other than leasehold. So that's something that's standard across all the districts, but it would not allow for standard residential subdivisions, as that's something that the airport asks us to limit.
Does the proposed ordinance limit that? I guess that's my
it limits residential uses.
Okay.
If you look at the proposed ordinance that's in front of the commissioners on page 414, you'll see that residential dwellings are outright prohibited by their lack of inclusion on the table.
Okay, got it.
All right. Any other questions?
I've got a comment. Your maximum height on a building, in the way it's presented tonight, is 50 feet. And which I consider restrictive to businesses around the airport. I think there should be some I just consider that restrictive. So that's a concern that I have. Can that be changed? How would that be changed? What would have to happen to change that?
There's been a proposal that's already been reviewed and unanimously recommended, if my recollection is correct, by the Planning Board, that would allow for more flexibility beyond the dimensional table to accommodate taller buildings. And the way that that would work is if you were building a standard building and you just wanted to do straight permitted by right, go into permits and inspections and move through the process, you could do that up to the 50 feet. The proposal on the table, you would also have the option of submitting to the Board of Adjustment and showing a set of plans with a little bit more detail and requesting additional height. In that same standard, we've also made similar allowances to reduce parking and to allow for minor variations in use for larger scale complexes. So that's something that we hope to bring to the Board of Commissioners soon, and it would kind of dovetail into this proposal, as well as the other existing industrial districts where that may be a problem.
I like the reducing of the parking, so I'm looking forward to you bringing that. Has this been around for a long time, the 50 feet? I mean, where does that?
The 50 feet is, at this time, to basically have something in place. There's always the opportunity for a variance, and we did discuss that with the airport, and they're aware of that. They're aware that on their own property they may have to apply for a variance. Hopefully we can get that proposal that I just discussed into place so we can eliminate the need for a variance and just allow the Board of Adjustment slightly more discretion to consider some of those uses which need to be taller.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we start public hearing? All right, thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Then we'll open the public hearing at 6:34. Is there any member of the public who wish to be heard on this Airport Industrial District Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Joe, you bring up a good point on the height of the buildings. I don't think it's clear on what really is supposed to be done. How does this conflict with federal standards on what airports should be? And what is the zoning ordinance? Is it a conflict with federal? And I think the reason I'm bringing this up is y'all have flown out of here and went to Hawaii and other places. And, you know, these things, you see airports with all kinds of things built around them, even water. You know, they have to land in the water sometimes, you know. But the point is, how does our zoning ordinance look compared to the federal aviation, and will the federal allow certain kinds of buildings to be built, and in what distance? So, a point.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment tonight? Public hearing is deemed closed at 6:37. Josh, any comments on the federal standards, if any?
Don't quote me on this, but I believe the federal standards are somewhere around 185 feet. We've been trying to work with the airport for anything in the area that's taller than we might expect, cell phone towers, large apartment complexes, to go ahead and get them to do a cursory review as part of the Board of Adjustment process. One of the next steps that we have coming forward is the Federal Aviation Administration has a model zoning ordinance that looks at flight paths and heights as it progresses out from the airport. So that's a discussion that we need to have. I guess the more problematic part of that discussion is we'll be working across several zoning jurisdictions because of where the airport sits. It would be ourselves, City of Asheville, Henderson County, Fletcher, and I believe Mills River would be involved in that discussion. But we wanted to go ahead and work with the airport district first to get that problem solved, and then begin the work on the airport overlay. And the airport overlay is something that's mentioned specifically in our plans. But as a stopgap measure at this time, we are attempting to have the airport review those larger projects to make sure there's not going to be any conflict. Once it broaches 185 feet, most of those structures have to go to the FAA for some kind of approval, which routes back through the airport, is my understanding.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make a motion to follow the planning board's suggestion.
There's been a motion by Vice Chair Frost. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Commissioner Jones, to approve the Airport Industry District Zoning Ordinance text amendment as presented. Any further discussion? Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
The motion, I believe it's 6-1. 6-1, Belcher. Okay, is there a county manager's report? Is there any new business? None listed. We have board appointments. Any?
Boy.
Okay, let's do the audit committee. This is a specific seat, so I think what I'll do is for each seat I'll take nominations, or I'll just go down the line. We know, I think, the people, as far as what they do, it's listed on our sheet. There's one member of the banking community. It looks like we have one candidate that qualifies there. Is that right, Madam Clerk? Okay. Is there anybody all in favor of Al Whiteside is the only one who qualifies? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Whiteside is appointed to the banking community seat, replacing Ernest Ferguson. There is one of two required CPA positions replacing John Cletus. It looks like we have two CPAs, Danny Yelton and Larry Harris. Is that your understanding, Madam Clerk? Okay, I'll poll the, not the jury, the commissioners.
Chairman, I apologize. I'm having a glance at this. We're on the audit committee right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Audit committee. We'll start, if you'll poll the commissioners. This is between Mr. Yelton and Mr. Harris.
Danny Yelton.
Yelton.
Okay, I'm confused.
We're voting for Mr. Yelton or Mr. Harris for the CPA position on the audit committee, replacing John Cletus.
Oh, the CPA. Okay, so I thought we was voting for 3 out of 4. Okay. Larry Harris.
Harris.
Yelton.
Harris.
Harris.
Mr. Harris is appointed by a 4-3 vote. Jones, Newman, and Frost against. We have another position, one member of another governing body within the county, replacing Elizabeth Graham.
You know, I have a quick question. I don't know what to do, but I was under the impression that Mr. Harris was from the governing committee, the government position.
He would be eligible for.
And Mr. Yelton was the CPA that had served on the as an auditor for.
Actually,
So-
Harris qualifies for both.
He does.
Okay. Okay.
He was in the government slot. Okay.
So we've already
But he
appointed him,
does.
so that would I guess we don't change that. So there's one member of the governing body. I believe that there are two candidates qualify. Mr. Harris has already been appointed, so that leaves Mr. Sobol. Is that right? Is there anybody else?
Mr. Yelton was a CPA, so was Larry Harris, but he's also serving on a board, so he was actually eligible for 2 positions.
Okay.
Yelton is eligible for the governing position also?
No.
No.
Harris was on them.
Mr. Yelton was our CP.
Yeah.
He was incredibly
Sorry.
qualified.
No,
We
we
got
got
Whitesides.
Whitesides.
Yeah.
So now we're doing the governing body appointment, and I believe that is there anyone else that qualifies for that besides Mr. Sobol
Well, Mr. Harris.
and Mr.
did.
Harris? Okay. All right, Mr. Harris has already been appointed. Is there all those in favor of Mr. Sobol? I guess I'll poll. There's one candidate available, so I guess we'll just say I'll nominate Mr. Sobol. All those in favor of Mr. Sobol say aye.
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 All opposed, no. Mr. Sobol is appointed, Mayor Sobol is appointed as the member of the governing body. Okay, next we have AB Tech Community College Board of Trustees. We have one reappointment. All those in favor of, I'll nominate Mandy Stone. All those in favor of Ms. Stone continuing her tenure there, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mandy Stone is appointed by a
Stuck
7-0
again.
vote. Next, we have Mountain Area Workforce Development Board. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Hardin and Frisbee.
Okay, Mr. Hardin and Mr. Phillip Hardin and Mr. Kenneth Frisbee have been nominated. Any other nominations? All those in favor of those two individuals say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Then they are appointed by a 7-0 vote. Downtown Commission, we have one. Any nominations? I nominate Mr. Jackson Bieber as to the Downtown Commission. He qualifies for this by being in the county, and I guess that's all it's required at this one, right? Okay. Okay, works downtown. Obviously, a county employee either way, or a county citizen. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Bieber say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mr. Bieber is appointed to the Downtown Commission by a 7-0 vote. Health and Human Services, we have one position. It is designated to be a eye doctor. We have one nomination, Mr. Paul Endry. Is there any other nominations? Okay. All those in favor of appointing Dr. Endry to the Health and Human Services Board say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mr. Endry is appointed by a 7-0 vote. I think we do have to have a closed session. Is that correct?
Very short one, yes, sir.
All right.
Economic development.
Economic development. Announcements. The next regular meeting of the board will be June 3rd, beginning at 4:30 in room 326 at 200 College Street in downtown Asheville. Commission meetings can be seen on BC Charter Cable Channel 192, ATT Uverse Channel 99, live on BC TV Channel 192, and on buncombecounty.org during the meetings or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Been a motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Belcher. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're in closed session. Thank you.
You're welcome. I really don't want my stuff. Man, I tell you what, it's ice cooler in here.
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
meat
it's
locker.
a little chilly, a little chilly.
I'm a little chilly.
You know what they should have done? They should have bought it.
Oh, yeah.
What'd I do? I was afraid a trailer park or something to come behind me and bought it. Yeah, I mean, that's what you do. It's America.
No, but what we're trying to do overall is if we get it to the clock adjustment, that's really not a difficult process. You get your permit within 30 days. Or you just assume it. If we don't do something, then we're going to hear there back. Boards have to go. That's what we're really trying to do.
I just think there's some circumstances you guys ought to be able to say, it's done.
We can't do those weird things though where we give them more discretion at the staff level. That's where we get in trouble. I mean, we're trying to get down to parking standards. I think that will be more help. If they can do that.
I just think 50 feet is, my house is basement, first, second floor. Measured one place, maybe it's way over.
Well, we do it on shortest side. So if you got to walk out.